This episode is brought to you by Generate Solutions, your go-to AI experts specializing in empowering commercial real estate companies and environmental consulting firms. As AI is quickly transforming industries and enhancing efficiency, it is important you don't let your business fall behind. At Generate Solutions, we streamline workflows and automate tasks by creating custom AI agents tailored specifically to your business needs. Interested in taking your operations to the next level with AI? Email mfiorante@generatesolutions.com or find us directly on LinkedIn by clicking the link in the bio. On to our episode.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. And tonight it brings me great pleasure to go down that road that I love, and this gentleman that I'm going to introduce tonight truly loves. It's going to be a really fun night here and a look back at a career that's really spanned a long time here. My guest is a lifelong hockey player, coach, and NHL off-ice official whose career spans more than 5 decades, from setting youth seasons in Minnesota to leadership roles in Illinois hockey, and 3 decades working inside the National Hockey League. His story blends achievement, mentorship, community impact, and a deep love for the game. His journey touches every corner of the sport: player, coach, administrator, collector, as you're going to see behind him, and ambassador. Tonight, I want to bring in John Berthiaume, the NHL Crew Supervisor, Chicago off-ice officials here in Chicago. And before we start it up, John, how's it going with you, young man? I don't think you're busy at all, or did I just make a big mistake?
First of all, thanks for having me, John. I'm really excited to do this with you. And yeah, I don't know any other way besides busy. That's the way I like to be. So, yes.
Boy, this is just fantastic. We had a chance. I knew John through a few friends, got to meet him on February 1st at the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame induction, and went right up to him. And he said, I asked him if he'd want to come on the show. And John, I was thrilled from that night, and met you through some really super people that we're going to talk about tonight. Of course, Gary Como, Jack Reslowski, the list goes on. Well, the thing here is you're a Minnesota born and raised guy?
I am, yes. Born in St. Paul, Minnesota. That's where I grew up. My parents had me on skates at the ripe age of 2 years old, which is pretty common up there in Minnesota. But yeah, I got to get on my skates real quick, and just started to fall in love with skating and the game of hockey.
Incredible. Do you remember when they put you on the skates?
Yeah, I think I was about 2 years old. The only thing I remember is I had a picture of me, and they had me, with an very old Cooper helmet on top of a hockey net on an outdoor rink. And those outdoor rinks became a very, very special place to me. In Minnesota, every Parks and Recs, facility has an outdoor ice rink. They have usually a figure skating rink and at least one hockey rink with boards up. And I spent many of Christmas breaks from sun up to sundown at those rinks.
And Johnny, these were outdoor rinks, correct?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean the temp and the wind and the chill and everything else is but it's those memories, like you just gave me goosebumps. And I mean, here in Chicago we had them, but and I remember them, and we couldn't wait for the ponds to freeze and everything else. But boy, you just gave me the shivers. And of course, you guys at that time growing up had the Minnesota North Stars, correct? Growing up.
That's correct. And well, first of all, back to the outdoor rinks, I knew I loved it so much when my parents would give me, $5 to spend the whole day down there. There was a Burger King across the street, but I never took off my skates. I would hand a $5 bill to someone that's going over there and said, get me something to drink, a Coca-Cola, and I'm going to stay here and skate till you get back, and you can keep the change. So that's how much I loved being on the
Yeah,
rink.
you didn't want to take off those skates. And just
Never.
incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
these are the memories that I mean that will never be forgotten. They stick in our minds. They stick in our minds. That's just beautiful. You really start to excel with this sport, I noticed. Then, of course, I'm going to touch on the thing of you played in Minnesota from Mites to Bantams, which
That's
was
correct. Yeah,
a
all the
big,
way through high. Yeah, all the way through high
yeah,
school hockey.
yeah, that's a big chunk of the career because, those are always the things I remember. You want to elaborate on this thing when you were a squirt. 129 goals and 75 assists in 50 games. Should I call you Wayne Gretzky or Johnny Berthiaume?
Definitely not Wayne Gretzky. You can definitely call me Johnny Berthiaume. I only can wish to be as great as the great one, right? But
But you
he
remember
was certainly an idol.
Yeah.
Certainly an idol, someone to look up to. Yeah, I was just a fast skater growing up, right? And that was probably attributed to my beginning skating so early in my life, and was able to be fortunate enough to be part of some great teams and some great players, and was a leader on some of those teams. Yes, I was fortunate enough to score some goals, but it was really about being with my friends and growing up on the ice.
You know, over the years of coaching here in Illinois, when I saw mites and squirts, there were, so many of them that, like, when they were mites, I was like, wow, this kid's going to go NHL one day. And then, of course, as it goes on, and you will know this as a coach, the parity begins to set in. Did you dominate at that level? I mean, when I see that number, it stuck out at me here tonight. Did you dominate at that level? And was the domination, I mean, you were probably one of the top players at that time, right?
Yeah, I dominated at that level. When I was little, I was squirt. In fact, I was picked to one of the first ever all-star teams that they had in Minnesota, and they picked from all over the Twin Cities. So we were like the St. Paul kids. There was a Minneapolis suburbs, the northern suburbs, and then you had, of course, your Edina, and those guys as well. And I played on a team there. I was the only one from my team to make this team. But the funny thing is, we ended up winning this tournament, which was cool. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world because it was at Richfield Ice Arena, and they brought in an organ. And can you imagine being a 9, 10-year-old kid, and all of a sudden, dun 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 is playing before you face off, and I was like, I was in heaven. We end up winning the tournament, and the funny thing is come to find out, when we're all 18 years of age, every single one of us on that team was playing college hockey. And one of them, a guy by the name of Brian Bonin, was Mr. Minnesota hockey that when he was a senior in high school, went on to play for the Gophers and then went on to play for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So just think, all those all-stars at that age, one kid out of everyone made it to the NHL. Well, I should say I made it to the NHL just in a different way.
Let me ask you a question on that. The gentleman you just mentioned, the Gophers, was that the team that Herb Brooks coached?
No, that was not. Herb Brooks was way before my time, as far as college. But
Right.
no,
He was not the coach of the Gophers team. No.
correct. That was like Doug Woog era, if you remember Doug Woog.
Okay, the name did sound familiar. So, but I mean, a big name in Minnesota hockey that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And you played some high school hockey, right?
I did. Yeah, I played at Cretin-Derham Hall High School for 4 years there. Most people I'm sure know that are going to be listening to this know how big the state high school hockey tournament is, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, they fill up the Excel Center where the Minnesota Wild play, and they get 18 to 20,000 fans for high school games, which is incredible. But my sophomore year, was one game away from making it to the tournament. We were 5 minutes to go in a game against South St. Paul, and one of our players took a penalty, and of course we got scored on the power play. But a couple interesting notes there that were kind of funny. I happened to play on a line with a Heisman Trophy winner.
Can we name that Heisman Trophy winner?
Of course we can. His name is Chris Winkie. He was also a first-round draft pick of the Major League Baseball, Toronto Blue Jays, and went to try that for a couple of years. And he was the #1 rated quarterback of the year, Gatorade Player of the Year. And Bobby Bowden at Florida State said, "Hey, I know you're going to go play baseball, but you're always welcome here." And then he went back, won a national championship at Florida State, and the Heisman Trophy winner, and was a quarterback in the NFL for some time.
John, I mean, you saw the athleticism of this man, right?
Oh yeah, I mean he was great at every sport too. I mean
Right, right.
football, hockey, baseball, everything he did, he was a top athlete.
Yeah, that natural thing. Now you come to Illinois to play the college hockey. I notice you're up at Lake Forest.
Yes, I did. It's funny. I never really heard of Lake Forest College until I got recruited by them. And we made a trip down, and I fell in love with the town. And I thought it would be a great place for me to move on. I had a lot of offers to play junior hockey, but my dad at the time said, "Hey, this is probably it after 4 years." You know, I was 5'7", 185 pounds, right? And he was the realist, and I thank him for that every day because it really made life happen for me. I got to go get a great education, play some hockey, and most importantly, meet some of the greatest people that I met in my entire life. In fact, one of my roommates was a guy by the name of Jim Jury, and his brother is Chris Jury, and Ted Jury, who also played in the NHL. It's funny. I always ask Chris, like, you went to your two brothers made it to the NHL. What happened to you? He goes, I like to have a little more fun than they did. So, and we certainly had our fun at Lake Forest College, but a funny story about.
And we're talking Johnny, the Chris Jury that played with the Avalanche, correct?
Played with the Avalanche, won a Stanley Cup there, was Rookie of the Year. He was also a Hobie Baker Award winner. He's now the general manager of the New York Rangers.
Yeah, phenomenal player. I mean, crazy. So, do you remember the coach up at Lake Forest, Illinois?
Sure, Tony Fritz.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
And he was well renowned here in our state.
Yeah, yes, he is. Yep. And
when you got to that level, did you see the game in a different way coming from Minnesota? Was it like, okay, now we're at that next level? Did you see this progression? And like you said, you're the 5'7" guy. Just want you to know I got an inch on you. I'm 5'8". But I didn't go any further myself. But did you? What was that step when you're at Lake Forest?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember the first shift I took in tryouts. I was maybe one skate onto the ice, and another one of my roommates, a guy by the name of Todd McCasm, was a great player for us, hit me so hard that I was like, okay, welcome to college hockey. And but the pace was a little faster, and it was just different, right? Just being on the road, some of the bus trips, stuff like that. So. But I absolutely loved every second of the chance I got there, and it took me into many different opportunities in life. For one, I was asked to be the first ever coach of the women's team at Lake
Women's team. I saw that. Yes, fantastic.
Yeah. And kind of a funny story there. So really, there was a bunch of some of my friends that were playing hockey, and they're like, "We need a coach," and I'm like, "All right, I'll come out and help." They had the ice, I think, once or twice a week. And then we played maybe a game on the weekend. And the only team in the area to play us was Lake Forest Academy, which is a high school, right? So you got college girls. On our team, we had two skaters. We had one from Boston, one from Minnesota. The rest were literally learning how to skate, okay? So we weren't very good, but in the Lake Forest Academy girls were pretty good. Well, a funny story is all of a sudden a brawl breaks out between the two teams. Now you got high school versus college, right?
College, right.
So it gets broken up, and we play the game. And the next morning, I get a call from the Tribune, and they said, "Hey, would you like to make a comment of this college girls, fighting the high school girls?" And I said, "No way, I would not like to make a comment on that whatsoever." We left that alone.
Yeah, we're not. Can you imagine that nowadays? It would have went viral.
Oh my God, yeah. And the funny thing is, they were all better skaters, so they were handling themselves better on the ice, but we were just trying to survive.
I'm going to tell you this now for what you did then. To go and play, and at the level that you played, and of course, being the player that you were, to coach girls hockey, let me tell you something. For me, I don't think I could have done it. When you got this offer, were you tickled pink, or were you like, oh man, I got a lot of work to do?
Honestly, I just kind of took it. I mean, I was a college kid at the time, right? And I was playing, so I just kind of took it as an opportunity to help out. What gets me up in the bed in the morning is helping people, and that's what I do in my real life job. And I we'll get to that later on of kind of, the best sport I landed in, best place I landed in hockey later
What
on
up?
with the Chicago Storm. But I definitely want to highlight that later on. But that's just the person I am. I like to help people, and they needed some help, and I was happy to do it.
How long did you do that for, John?
I just did it for one season with them.
One season. Okay,
Yeah, my
great.
senior year there.
Again, to take that, hey, like it's like that internship or whatever, you took that as an experience, and man, oh man, once we go through all this, you rolled with it. You really
Yeah,
did roll with
and the
it.
cool thing about it is where it is now, right? Like I was the first one to, teach girls how to skate and make sure they had the right equipment and everything else and play a few games. And now they're, making the NCAA tournament at Division III level. So
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
it's crazy, and of course, yeah, this one, and especially what happened here 2 weeks ago with them winning the Olympic like the men's did, not to be over just seen, by the men's accomplishment. They had a great run. So after this, how long how long before do the squirt, the peewee, these all these travel teams? When did you get back into it full force?
As far as like
Coaching, coaching.
coaching, gotcha. Yeah. That's a great question. So my time, then in college, I actually got an internship with the Chicago Blackhawks PR department, and
Okay.
so my senior year. So I really was hoping to. I knew my playing career was kind of coming to an end, and I wanted to extend it, and always wanted to be at the highest level. So my
Sure.
thought was, as a English communications major, that I'd be a sports broadcaster, right? And so I applied for the Chicago Blackhawks internship, and my uncle at the time was doing their highlight films. Did it for the North Stars, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Chicago Blackhawks. So I had a little connection on my way in. So he got me the interview, but apparently, when I finally got the job, I realized that over 10,000 people apply for these positions, and at
Oh,
that
wow.
time there was only two interns. There was a public
Johnny,
relations
what year are we talking here when we talk about this?
95, 96.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, late in the past years, they've had up to 30, 40 interns, but back then there was really only two of us. So I really got to know the ins and outs of a lot of different things as far as public relations. And really, I ran their street hockey, hockey program, and had a good time with that. So it's called Street
I can,
Hawks.
yeah, I can imagine. So, I mean, this has been going on from that day forward. Correct me if I'm wrong now. 31 years, correct? I mean, you've been a
Correct.
part
Yeah.
of this
So,
31 years. And
yeah.
I just want to tell our audience, and we can elaborate on it. This has been going on 31 years with John Berthiaume. And I want to tell you, as an NHL off-ice official promoted to crew supervisor just now in 23, which is basically 3 years ago. I know time flies. This man has worked 3 Stanley Cup finals. He has worked 4 outdoor games: Wrigley Field, Soldier Field, and the Notre Dame game. And of course, worked 2 NHL Premier games in Helsinki, Finland. Personal stories that he's going to tell us about with the one that he told me over a phone that I want everybody to talk about. People like Herb Brooks, who we mentioned, Keith Tkachuk, and Yari Curry, and of course. Mr. Berthiaume, if anybody saw my promo, has finally met the Stanley Cup. You'll see that too. So, John, let's elaborate now a little bit. I mean, I know I want to go back to you even being a hockey director, but this 31 years, that's a resume in itself, what I just reeled off.
Yeah, hockey's been great to me, and I love hockey, and I want to give back as much as I can. But yeah, so kind of getting into that. So my internship year, the Blackhawks at the time, their PR director said, "Hey, we need you to hang on. We really like you. We're going to offer you a full-time job." And the job was basically going to be their travel manager. So I would go on on the road with the team and make sure their hotels are all set and all that kind of stuff, right? And any problems that happen on the road, I'd be the guy they go to. So make a longer story short. They went through a few rounds. They kept me on as an intern for a little longer than we both planned, and they finally were able to offer me the full-time job. And honestly, I had a salary that I couldn't even afford my rent downtown Chicago. So I said, "Can we come up at all?" And they said, "We really can't. But what we can do is statistics are going live on the internet, and guys that have been doing these statistics have been doing it by hand, and they're not really computer elaborate. Would you mind showing them how to turn on a computer and go from there?"
Right.
So that was how I got into the off-ice officiating. I helped them turn on the computer, showed them how to point and click a mouse and everything else. And they said, holy cow, if something goes wrong, we need you around. Would you like to do this? And I said, heck yeah, I would. I can go get a real job. And when I say real job, outside of sports, that going to pay the bills a little bit better than what I could afford at the Blackhawks, and was able to go to every single Blackhawks game and work them as an off-ice official through the years.
Tell you, can I ask you the question this way? I mean, this is phenomenal. I mean, when we talk 31 years and some of the things that you have seen, I'm going to use the word, is there a lot of stress with this?
Not really. There's a little bit of stress because you got to be right. I mean, especially nowadays, there's so many things that go into the game, like gambling and other things like that. And
yes,
so we got to be on, par with everything. Right. We do have a lot of backup scenarios that we can look at video and whatnot to make sure that the correct call's made. But we have, if you're having fun at what you're doing, you're going to be good at it if you're knowledgeable about what you're doing. So that's what we like to focus on.
John, when we talk about, here now we work, in Stanley Cup finals, and of course the ones of the most recent here in the mid 2000s, and of course the outdoor games. Again, I'll use the other word now. The responsibility now becomes, where you really have to be picture perfect. I'll say that. You have to be on top of it every day in and day out, especially when it's knowing a 7-game series is coming up in the Stanley Cup.
100%. You got to prepare, and there's cameras everywhere looking at everything, right? So you just got to be aware of everything that's going on. You got to know your job, you got to study your job, and you got to show up to do your job. And kind of like you say, they have us there a couple hours before every game to make sure that we're on time and we don't need to get a backup. For Stanley Cup Finals games, the NHL takes over and they want us there 4 hours before the game. So we're ready to go.
You're on top of things. Let's go back to the coaching for a little bit, and of course we'll go back to some of the things that we're going to talk about and what we just said. So you start this coaching, with the squirt and the peewees and the bams, and then you move into basically, again, it seems like you have this down pat. You move into kind of like the management part of the game that we're talking about, the squirt, the bantam, the peewee. You actually start to run an organization, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So coaching was great. It got my love of youth hockey back into me. I was able to coach my son all the way from basically squirts up through bantams and then kind of let him be after that. But and I loved it. Just the people that I met are some of my best friends in the world right now, right? And that's what you take home from it. But what we learned is, from my experience growing up in Minnesota and some of the things that were going on, and I was trying to learn how things were done in Illinois hockey. I just wanted to make a great program. It was so important for us to have a place that's affordable for kids to play and doing things the right way. So I took over. I was president for about 6 years of the Vipers organization up in Gurnee. And the best thing that we did there, when I started, we were actually known as the Maulers. And the Maulers had 3 bronze teams. They had a squirt, a peewee, and a bantam team. And if you look at where we've joined the Positive Coaching Alliance, which is just a great place. Really, their motto is the sports arena is a great place for kids to learn life lessons. And we bought into that, whole truth and everything. So that was knowing that we're coming from a right place. Then the other thing that we did was really important is we partnered with Pleasant Prairie Ice Arena. So now that gave us 3 sheets, and we were able to get ice at a decent rate. So we're able to keep the cost down. The best thing we did overall is hire our hockey director, Tim Kinsman. And he and we all grew this program. For now, there's, I think, like 27 teams and like 3 or 4 all girls teams. So something that I'm really proud of. And they're competing at the highest level of Illinois hockey, Tier 2 at the Central States level, and winning some championships.
to your wife, because I know with this Mufflers Vipers team, she's got the worst position, you say, with handling a lot of the stuff. How important is to have somebody, of course, like your wife or that person, behind her. We'll say behind the scenes. What is your
Yeah.
wife's
Oh my
first name, by
gosh.
the way?
I always say
Johnny, what is your wife's first name? I'm sorry.
my wife's first name's Karen, and
Karen.
yeah,
Big
she's
shout out to
fantastic.
Karen.
And
Yeah.
yeah, thanks to Karen, so supportive. My daughter Molly also needs a little shout out. She's always been supportive of us as well. But really, the two hardest positions I think in hockey are the team manager, and probably the worst position is what my wife had. She was the president and coach's wife and the goalie's mom. So that's a tough place to be in the stands sometimes. And God bless her for the great attitude she has and being so supportive.
Here's the thing. You guys built this up from the bronze level up. I mean, that takes a lot. I mean, including the girl teams. I mean, competing at the level of. Do you think I always tell people, they ask me, why are you still involved in it? Like I'm on this review suspension committee for the state. It just never leaves you, but you look like your organizational skills, John, are over the rainbow. I mean, because you took something from nothing to something. I'll use it that way. Do you feel you've made that difference just hearing the accolades for you?
I do feel, I'm going to say we made a difference. It takes a village, right? And the board that we had with me and under me, and the hockey director, and just all the families, and actually the support of Positive Coaching Alliance, just knowing that we're doing things the right way, really just helped us develop really a top tier organization and one of the biggest in Illinois.
I can imagine. Do you want to touch on this storm thing? I
had you.
Yeah, that also fascinated me because you're right here. The most important and rewarding hockey experience, volunteering coaching for the Chicago Storm hockey team. I would just love to hear about that, because that is fantastic in itself.
Yeah. So first of all, one of the first things I did as a sport coach is I invited GLASA, Great Lakes Adaptive Sports Association, and their sled hockey team over to play one of my sport teams, right? And it was amazing, the talent that these unable-bodied athletes have, right? And so we mix them up with our team, and it just really, it humbled our kids that are able-bodied. And not only did they have a great experience playing, they made some friends too, which is one of the coolest things. But it kind of really brought everyone down to earth. We lost a huge game right before that. And when we played them, the kids kind of came in and said, you know what? There is more to life than losing a hockey game. And so that was a huge life lesson they learned there. So from then on, we invited the Hornets to be part of our group, and we try and raise money for all these. And the Hornets, I think, as most of you know, is a great sled hockey organization as well. And then the next group we invited was they were actually the Chicago Blackhawks special hockey team, which then became the Storm. And when we did that, I fell in love with the organization. Jack Roslowski is one of the leaders in Gurnee. Steve Drews is another leader. And they took this organization to new heights. And I am just so fortunate to be a part of it. It's my Sunday morning's treasure. I go out every Sunday morning in Gurnee, and we have 1 hour of ice to coach, and it's donated by Top Shelf. Kurt Carlson's a heck of a guy who took over Top Shelf and made it it was going under at a time, and he took it over and made it a place where everybody could play hockey, and donates the hour of ice every week to the Chicago Storm.
And John, this is all, when we're doing this thing on Sunday, it's all special needs things, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, again, and knowing Jack all these years, of course, being a coach, and he roughed a lot of my games over the years, and at 19 years, yeah, what a gentleman to have. And I know another gentleman that you brought up when I was getting the info on you and doing the research, we talk about Kevin Delaney. Also, I mean, it was honored the night when we were both there at the Hall of Fame. You've touched and complimented so many people, but here's the thing: the giving back to the game, like this Chicago Storm that you've done, is just amazing. I mean, And here you got this full-time job with, in the NHL with the Blackhawks. How have you been able to keep this all together?
Like I said, it's the only way I know how to live. If I
Right.
wasn't busy, I don't think I would know what to do. But it grounds me, right? I got my full time job, which I do. I work for AbbVie Pharmaceutical Company, and I'm on the patient side. So I help patients get access to their drugs. That's what I like to do. I like to help people, right? So I get some affirmation there and some gratitude there as well. And then the NHL is where I can focus on. That's kind of like it's where I go to forget about everything. I get drowned in the game and I love it and work hard at that too. And then the rewarding experience with the Chicago Storm. So those are kind of the outside my family life. Those are the three things that keep me going.
I want to ask you a question that I wanted to touch on with you. Recently, you coached at an international special hockey tournament in Toronto. How was that? And again, the commitment. You're going to Toronto to coach, to do this tournament. How was that? And did you see another level of just this commitment level from everyone?
Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, it was just this past weekend actually, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go and see the kind of the fruits of all of our labor. I mean, you got kids that are like any kid. You're pushing them on a chair for 2 years, and they finally can now stand up and skate. And now they're playing in a game in a tournament against kids from Canada, and there was even teams from London there. But what it's all about is how hard these families work to give their kids the best life,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And just these amazing parents and siblings that go support their athletes that have special needs, and it's really just a rewarding experience and one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
John, is it hard to, here we are grown men. Is it hard to keep the emotions in check when you see that for them, the special need player, this for them is like playing in the United Center game 7? Is that the feeling that they have
Oh my
knowing
God, it is. And it's for their parents too. They're going crazy like you'd see a Mike parent going crazy watching their kid play for the first time in a tournament, right? So
right?
it's so much fun. It brings you back to that time. And there are games where a special needs kid scores his first goal and there's not a dry eye in the whole arena. It's unbelievable.
Right, crazy. I don't know how well you know the Hornets situation.
Sure.
On Tuesday nights, there's a family coach out there whose family owns a pizzeria called Mama Maria's, Joey Calzante. And I had a friend of the family make the team at 4 years old. I think his name is Alexander Chohan, and has this disability. And I asked him a couple of weeks ago, I went in for a pizza, which I didn't eat again, but went to for the pizza, and he told me that Alexander is like, when we gave him the jersey and everything else, it was like putting Jonathan Tays in the sea on the jersey. I mean, and you depicted it so well. I mean, this is really unbelievable how this has all come into play. I'm going to go back to something maybe in the normality range. How is it to be a coach, win some championships? And the way you've done it, I think you've done it where, winning isn't everything, but the way you've done it has made winning special. Anything that stands out in your mind that you remember of all these things that you've done, the coaching?
Yeah, it's my first year. We call it Squirt Tan, probably the most special team I've ever coached. We're talking about a house team here. Back when my son was first playing hockey, my son Charlie was a goalie, and so that was kind of weird. Yeah, I know, weird for me being a skater, but at least I had someone to shoot on in the driveway all the time,
Yeah.
right? But we were awful. We didn't win a game until after the new year. So you start in October, November, and we didn't win a game, and the kids are kind of down. And I said, just stick with it, guys. We're getting better. We're getting better. All of a sudden, the new year comes and we go on a run. And then we didn't lose a game until we get to the playoffs, and we're now seeded. We were like a tier B team, and they seeded us tier A for the playoffs because we were doing so well lately. We go through the playoffs. We get into the championship game, And literally, I'm not kidding you, with 1 second on the clock, we're playing Evanston, and they score a goal. This kid takes it all the way down and scores a goal on us, right? And so I call timeout. And the kids are kind of crying, and they're like, "Why did you call timeout? There's no chance for us to score with a face-off at center ice with 1 second on the clock." And I called timeout to tell you how proud I am and how proud you guys should be of each other. Who would have thought in December we'd ever be in a championship game right now, right? And so I just want to show you guys and call it out. What a great job you guys did coming together as a team, and how proud your parents are of you, and how proud you should be of each other. And we walked off the ice with a lot of smiles, so that was good.
About not a dry eye in the house. I would have been crying if I was your assistant on that bench. That was beautifully done because you regrouped them and wanted to thank them before that game ended. I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, that's something that they will see you in a restaurant 10 years from now and say, Coach Berthiaume, do you remember when that run we had? Yeah, those are the things. I love going to a restaurant and someone come up to me and say, Coach Conenna, do you remember? You just again gave me the goosebumps.
That just reminded me of a story too. I'd have a pre-season meeting every year. And one of my great friends, Mike Kotler, he was Charlie's goalie coach and our assistant coach from on many of the hockey teams we had. And he had a son that played AAA hockey and ended up playing club hockey at Iowa. So he saw everything before we did, right? And every meeting he would come in and he'd say, "Hey, parents," he goes, "your kid 10 years from now is not going to remember the score of this certain game, but I darn well tell you they're going to remember swimming in the hotel with their friends when they go to a tournament and all those times that they had. So just enjoy the ride."
It just, I mean, I was so glad, like your kids, my kids, it was a controlled environment. It set them on the straight and narrow, and the memories never go away. They never go away. All right, I got two things for you that I still want to talk about with you, and then we're going to do a game of 5 questions. But when I had called John, and John already had agreed to come on the show, he told me a great Herb Brooks story that I want everybody to hear. Of course, Herb Brooks is the legendary 1980 coach who took college students to play Russian professionals. And the reason why I'm saying this, what happened 2 weeks ago is fine and dandy. It was basically NHL Americans versus NHL Canadians. But this was something special, and John's got a great story about the great Herb Brooks, who got cut in 1960 and had his 20-year dream in his mind, and wanted to get back for maybe being cut in a good way and playing those Russians. But I want our audience, before we talk about those beautiful pucks in the background, tell them the Herb Brooks story.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite stories. Thanks, John. And yeah, you're right, John. Herb was the last guy cut on that team, right?
Yes.
That ended up winning a gold medal. So, and they had
was that in Squaw Valley, Johnny?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Squaw Valley. Yeah.
So Herb grew up, obviously, he's a Minnesotan, and he was neighbors with my uncle. So I got to meet Herb at a pretty young age. And my uncle was actually at those games in Lake Placid, and they were great friends. And my uncle passed away too early, but Herb Brooks was a pallbearer in my uncle's funeral. So that's how close.
Wow.
But so interestingly enough, time goes by, and I'm working up in the press box doing my NHL job. And who sits next to me in 2002 scouting for the Utah Salt Lake City games is Herb Brooks. And I couldn't believe it. And I had a friend that was behind me named John Galuzzi, great Italian guy. And
you know very well.
Do you? In fact,
John
has been Christopher Columbus in the Columbus Day Parade.
Yes, and John Galuzzi and Nick Lavelle are very close friends.
Nick Lavelle I've worked with too.
Sure.
I know Nick's a super guy and a fantastic coach, and maybe someone you should have on here someday as well.
You got it. I'm going to take your lead on that one. Go ahead.
Yeah. But anyways, so John Galuzzi is a funny character. And he's behind Herb Brooks, and we're all doing our stats. And if you know Herb, one of his famous sayings during that game is "play your game." Play your game. So John's walking behind us saying, "Play your game, play your game." And Herb Brooks gives him a kind of a smile. And then he looks at Herb and he goes, "Hey, what'd you ever do with those plaid pants that you wore during that game?" And Herb's just puzzled as can be. He goes, "I have no idea where those things are. No idea." And so then I started talking to Herb, and I said, "I'm John Berthiaume. I'm Dick, your friend's nephew. He's like, oh my gosh. And he's, asking me what I do. At that time, I was in pharmaceutical sales, and so was his son-in-law. And he thinks it's one of the greatest professions in the world. So, we sit there and I tell him, I said, hey, there's a guy named Chris Drury that I know pretty well. And I think you got to take a look at him for this team. And he told me, don't worry about it. He's already on the team. So I had the inside scoop there, which is kind of cool. And so after the game, 2002 West Loop, not the best neighborhood at the time. And Herb's asking me, where does he get a taxi? And I said, you don't.
Yeah, right.
I said, let me give you a ride. It took him some convincing, and he finally let me give him a ride to his hotel out near O'Hare. And I'm telling you, it was the slowest I've ever drove in my life. I was cherishing every second with what I think is the greatest coach of all time. And just talking, we were talking family, we were talking hockey. And of course, we finally get to his hotel, and I'm like, all right, Herb, I got to ask you, do you need a stick boy for the Olympics? And he goes, John, I think you're doing really well in your career. You should stick with what you're doing. And so I wished him well. And one of the coolest things, the next Monday morning when I showed up back at my house after work, there was a package from USA Hockey with a card from Herb Brooks saying thanks for the ride, and a USA Hockey hat, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, legendary in itself, and what a story, because that's something you can't make up. And just the respect you had for him, but get this, look at the respect Brooks had for you and your family. And he knew, I'm going to use a word here tonight because you're going to see somehow I'm going to end this tonight. He knew you were an honest person. He knew you were an honest person. And that man, of course, knew his character, especially when he picks those 18 boys to take over in 1980. That's fantastic. All right. Tonight, I got to be honest with you, is one of the best displays I've seen of a background. I normally do these from my office. Tonight I'm doing from my home. So my sign is a conversation with John Conenna, but John here, Berthiaume, has got the best display behind him. John, you want to tell our audience about all these pucks? I know you're not going to shoot them on me because I was an ex-goalie, because I can't even bend down to pick up a piece of paper these days. But tell our audience what all those pucks behind you and the ones over that right shoulder.
Yeah, I started kind of collecting pucks from some of the games I worked, and I really started in 2010. They started selling game pucks for like the Stanley Cup finals. So they did game 1, game 2, so on and so forth. And so I started buying those at the gift shop. And I'm like, you know what? My goal is to have every era Chicago Blackhawks puck there is. So I have one, I believe, every era puck from 1926 to today. They're 100, it's a centennial anniversary puck. And there's some pretty rare ones in there. There were some that were only used for a year, and some that were only used really for a game, like the Helsinki game that I worked, right? The 2 games there were pucks like that, and Winter Classic game pucks and stuff like that. So I'm really proud to have that. It's been a work in progress, but I sure love the hunt and having fun talking to some crazy puck collectors, like Gary Como taught me a lot about it. So
without a doubt,
Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame.
But that is fantastic, and the way you've got them set up, and of course the Stanley Cup, the smaller version of the Stanley Cup replica. And you were telling me before tonight started, the ones over the shoulder here on the right side.
This is important to me. Thanks for bringing that up. These are Cooper pucks.
Okay.
I bet one of the greatest guys I know, one of my best friends, is Jesse Pye. He works. He has cerebral palsy, and he works at the Pleasant Prairie Recplex rink. I got to know him just working at the rink, and he's become a good friend of mine. And he thinks that Cooper pucks are the best pucks ever made. And so he has a collection of over 1,700 and counting. So if anybody out there ever has any Cooper pucks, send them my way, and we'll make sure Jesse gets them.
Oh, fantastic. But I just, again, don't mind that little display here to the right of you, but that display behind you and how you've described it, just fantastic. There's memories. There's, that's the memorabilia of the game with those pucks. Okay, I'm going to do a thing of 5 questions, and then I got something to say about you that somebody said about you.
Oh,
but that's my last thing, and it's very nice too. And it really came out in this interview. All right, I got 5 questions for you. It could be 1-word answers or a sentence or so. When you're driving that car you're going down to the United Center or wherever you're at, Helsinki, you've been all over the place, wherever you're at. Who are those mentors that come still in your head to this day? Give me one or two. It could be your parents, whoever. Who's those mentors when you're at that light and you say, wow, man, I got here because of these people?
Yeah, there's a lot of people. But first of all, I got to say, there's nothing better than driving down the Edens and all of a sudden coming into the Kennedy and seeing that skyline. And I'm like, here we go. I'm going to the United Center.
Yeah.
But, first and foremost, my dad gave me hockey. I can't thank him enough. I had one of the best coaches in my life, was actually a baseball coach named Dennis Denning at Cretin-Derham Hall. And he's had multiple Major League Baseball players. He taught me that one of the things he taught me is dare to be great. Yep. So my dad and Dennis Denning are probably my two biggest mentors when it comes to sports.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thanks for saying that. All right. John Berthiaume, what's the movie you can watch 200 times and not get bored? Give me one or two. Give me your favorite movie, couple movies that you can watch 200 times. You can get off the set with me now and go
I'll
watch.
give you one non-hockey and one hockey. So my trip to Helsinki, I think I watched Miracle maybe 8 or 9 times.
Oh,
so you can't get enough of it.
I think Kurt Russell does a great job being books.
And you see something different every time, right? So it's just cool. And then my all-time favorite is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I can't get enough of it. It's got the funny, and it kind of tugs at your heart a little bit. So I love it.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking about the mentors and everything, but you're having the good day or you're having the bad day, John. What's the John Berthiaume song that gets them going? What are a couple songs that you're turning it up in the car?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I've watched a couple of your podcasts and you played one of them on there. It's Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. I grew up listening to Guns N' Roses. They were kind of my psych up song before I played hockey. And I gotta mention "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong. That was my wedding song with my wife. I love that one too. So you can see there's two sides of me, right?
Yeah. Well, and nice that you brought her up again. For all she's done, it. "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong. I love that because it's peaceful, it's serenity in that song. Exactly. All right, you've been in Chicago long enough. Give me your top 5 restaurants or top 5 places or top 5 things you like to eat in Chi-Town.
Yeah, I love Italian food. So believe it or not, we're going to go all the way out west to Richmond, Illinois, and there's a place called Paisano's. It's my favorite place.
I'm not going to go. Is it good?
We got to go there. I absolutely love it.
We'll go before I start the diet. It may be that I won't start the diet till next year.
All right, that sounds good. I love Joe's Stone Crab downtown for a steak. So those are probably my 2 favorite spots.
Great. And is there any like fast food that you like? Is there a beef sandwich or a pizza?
Johnny's Beef is my favorite beef sandwich, and of course the watermelon ice is awesome there too.
You go to the one on Arlington Heights Road?
That's the best one, yeah.
That's the best one. I was there Sunday, yeah. We're gonna run into each other real quick.
That's right.
John, I gotta tell you, question 5. This is amazing because basically, I'm so glad that I got to touch on everything. But I could talk to you probably for another hour. But I got to ask you this question: from those days in Minnesota to now, if you had to do this all over again, are you doing it?
Heck yeah, 100 times over. From the people I've met and the mentors I've had, I've met just unbelievable people, whether it be at the NHL level, at the youth hockey level, at the college level. Those are the things I'm going to take away from the game, and that's why I want to give back so much.
Yeah, you've done a great job. All right, I'm going to read something that stuck out at me, but then I'm going to say something that somebody said to me about you. It's amazing.
All right.
And it's short and sweet, but here's what I got to say about you, and it's in your bio. John credits his father for giving him the game, which he mentioned here tonight, and his son Charlie for giving him the chance to continue coaching. He also acknowledges that many people who shaped his journey, teammates, coaches, NHL colleagues, and Illinois hockey leaders who dedicated their lives to the growing sport. Today I made a phone call and I talked to this gentleman who's been really good to me. And I said, can I ask you something? If you had how do you describe the word friend? He goes, well, John, he goes, in life, sometimes we go through life and sometimes could be down to one friend when you get to be my age, he says. I go, how would you describe John Berthiaume? And he said it, and you brought it out in this so much, just like in the Herb Brooks story. He says, I'm going to describe him in one word. He gave me goosebumps today. I got 3 goosebumps here today. Honest. He goes, John Berthiaume is honest. And that comes from the Hall of Famer, great referee in his day. Of course, the scorer at the Wolves games, our friend and yours, Gary Como. Wow. Gary said it perfectly today to me, and it was on the phone at about 11:30 this morning. He says, I just can describe him. He's an honest and true friend. John Berthiaume, I want to thank you for coming on a conversation with John Conenna tonight. This was a thrill, and I just loved everything about the career, what you're doing. John, I mean it. This was great.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a thrill for me. I enjoyed it, and look forward to getting to know you even better, John.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I got to tell you, this is going to go out on YouTube and Spotify. Like in the coming days, we should probably have this out to you by Friday for our audience to see. Again, we have visited tonight with John Berthiaume, NHL Crew Supervisor, Chicago, off-ice official, administrator, coach, manager, you name it. This gentleman has done it. A great, great hockey career. And the good thing about it, it's still going on. Thanks, Johnny. Thank you for tonight.
Thank you.